You are listening to the Bell Post. And today's guest is a Bexar County dynamo. She's the first Latina and first woman elected in the history of as the Bexar County Clerk since the creation of the Republic of Texas. She's a fighting voc from Sidney Lanier High School and a graduate of Southern Career Institute. She's married and has 2 children. Welcome to our show, the Bexar County Clerk, Lucy Adame-Clark.
Hi, how you doing? I'm excited to be on here.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and you'll please forgive me for my animated introduction, but I have been watching the New Heights podcast with the Kelsey brothers, and they have a tendency to do that, and so I'm like, hey, I'm going to try that with Lucy and see how it goes, and I was like, I'm going to screw this up so bad because, today's my 27th wedding anniversary, so
Congratulations, happy anniversary.
Shout out to Terry. Thank you so much for putting up with me for 27 years.
Oh, I love that. I love how you said that. She's going to love you more for that. Well, thank you for having me. I'm the county clerk, of course. I was elected in 2018, took office in 2019. Been with county government going on 27 years on January the 7th of 2024. So started my career at 23 years old. I'm excited. I worked at the sheriff's office 22 years out of those 27 years. And, I learned a lot. I learned a lot from the sheriff's office, created the SIDS, worked on error resolutions, worked on corrections for DPS, FBI, did a lot of ATF work, went through a lot of educational certificates, accreditations, whatever I needed pertaining to my career. So the county clerk went in line with my position at the sheriff's office, also the district clerk as well, too.
Well, talk to me about, I know you're married, you have 2 kids. I have 2 daughters. My daughters are almost all grown up. My oldest is out of college and my youngest is in her first semester of college. So, but I have 2 girls. What do you have?
So I have a son, a daughter. So I've been married going on, 19 years? We've been together 20 years. I do have a son who's 25 years old. He actually works for the district clerk's office. He works for the district clerk's office. And then I have my daughter who is 15 years old. She's a sophomore in high school. She's in the FFA program. She's in the weightlifting program. She played sports, but she's all about FFA and, competing in barbecues. And I love that she's in FFA program because the Future Farmers of America has so many opportunities for our kids. So I'm a mom full-time when I'm not in the office or in the community. And then my husband, he's a deputy. He's been with the sheriff's office actually going on 27 years. He started when he was 19 years old. And it's a partnership. Like you said, your wife is lucky to have you. I say my husband's lucky. I'm lucky to have my husband. We're lucky to have each other. It's a powerhouse. It takes a village to raise our children and be in position.
Well, when my oldest daughter hit 13, we're very close. We're still very close now. She's like 22. But when she hit 13, it was like, I describe that as the cold winter. The year of the cold winter and then I thought, oh, it's over, because when she turned 14, she gave me a hug and I was like, oh no, it's over. But no, hot cold. But I always thought my job was, when my daughter was your daughter's age, was to run off every boy that ever looked at her. And so when she graduated from high school, I said, now it's your job. Because I want you to get married. I want to have grandkids. I want to have all the T-shirts that said, "Don't make me call Grandpa."
Oh.
But I said, I want you. So now it's up to you to figure out the good guys from the bad guys.
Yeah.
So
we can only protect them so much. I tell my children, my son, I tell him the opposite. I said, son, don't be having no kids. If you ain't ready, don't be having no kids. Figure out your life. You're 25 years old. I was 27 when I had him. I was 37 when I had my daughter. So I always tell him, figure out your life, go get your education, make your career, settle yourself, and then you can have your family so you don't have to struggle. So you want to make sure you have everything set in stone before you start your life. Many people can't do that. So I tell them, take your time and take it easy and you'll be okay. So I'm not at that point yet where I want all the grandkids. I love everybody else's kids and my own.
I should not tell this story on myself because it really makes me look awful. But I'm 10 years older than my wife. So I'm like 62 years old. And so I'm like,
okay.
But so when my daughter turned 16, I went to her and I said, I'm not ready for you to start having sex, but I am ready for grandkids. these are mutually exclusive terms, but
Well, hey, nowadays you can have a surrogate, or you can just adopt a child. So
no,
there's
no,
many
no.
ways now.
You know, I've always thought of Bexar County as a very conservative religious community. And I mean,
Mhm.
my wife and I, probably one of the ways we're so close or so alike is we're very religious. We're Southern Baptist. And so my wife would never get close to anything like that. But
Oh yeah.
when I was researching you and I saw that you went to Sidney Lanier High School, I had to stop and research the mascot, the vote. But I thought it really turned out to be this really cool thing. But
It is.
can you talk about what is a Vogue?
So it was more of a vocational school, and the Vogue is more like a tool to. It was a very traditional school where it comes from a very underserved, underprivileged community. So it was like a big thing for them. Now it looks, it's amazing. They have this, they have this logo, they have all this marketing. But back then it was just like the ending of a screw, and that's it. It was so basic, just vocational, screw it together, and that's who we are. But Lanier High School comes from a mixed community. I was actually born in housing. I came from the Alasana Pacha courts, and I was raised in the Alasana Pacha courts and the Casiano courts. My father was a Marine. He served the Marines in the 50s and 60s. My mom was an advocate. It was a very close community. It was about helping each other, but then there was others that would treat us like second-class citizens because we were in housing. They thought, oh, they're in housing, they're not going to amount to anything. They're just milking the government, and we weren't. It's just that back when that community was from a very poor community, a certain era of our time. And my father being in the military, they didn't make that much money. They still don't make that much money. I always say they should make more money than they actually make. And there was a lot of couples that the partner would stay at home. One would work and the other one wouldn't. Remember that? The husband would work and the wife would stay home. And now it's not like that. We're both working, we're both, making sure that there's food on the table, making sure our kids are well educated, making sure our kids have more opportunities. But back then in the 70s and 80s, even prior to that, my dad was born in the 30s, they didn't have those kind of access resources. They were very limited, and they came from working the fields.
I like the whole vote concept though, because
Yeah.
it's the concept of a smaller part of a whole and how the whole machine can't work without everyone working together. And I've
Yes.
never seen that as a mascot. And so I really, I mean, I loved it so much that I'm talking about it right now, but I like that whole concept. We need more schools
Yeah.
teaching the concept of, society can't work without all of us working together. So
That's right.
even though you're a small part, you're a crucial part. And I like that. I like it a lot. And I mean, I had to stop and research it. And so
I'm glad you did. Many people just like, why do you have an ending of a screw as your school, mascot? And I'm like, you have to go back to the history of it.
we always have our annual meeting for the Professional Bondsmen of Texas in Bexar County in San Antonio every year around October, November. And we have had in the past one of your predecessors, the county clerk, speaking at our convention. And actually that changed the way we do our conventions. And so we do them completely different. And it's because, if we bring in an elected official to talk for 30 minutes or for an hour, that's a big responsibility. And is it something that it's applicable to us? And so we've discovered as a result of that if we do these types of things, an interview or a conversation, we can, direct the conversation and make sure that it's something that our membership is interested in, but it's actually low stress to our guests when we bring them in. And so it requires little preparation or less preparation than a whole hour long presentation. And that's really kind of the foundation or the impetus of how we do this podcast. We do the same thing that we kind of started our annual meeting. So I thought that was interesting. One of your predecessors caused this and it's not a negative for them. It's just that it's the result of them coming and speaking at our annual meeting.
Mr. Reckoff, Mr. Jerry Reckoff.
Yes. Yes. I also remember him because he was a strong person, I would say.
Yes.
I also say, when you get a lot of bondsmen in the room, you have a lot of hot air. Well, Mr. Rickoff was a big personality. And I remember one time at a bail bond board meeting talking to him because we had a form. The company had a form for a recommendation letter. And he's like, I don't like your form. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, sir, but the Supreme Court of Texas has overturned applications because it didn't have certain language in it. He said, I don't care. I don't like your form. And I'm like, well,
I
sorry.
believe you. I know him personally.
Well, you've already mentioned that you've had a long history in like the sheriff's department, police
Mhm.
department, and kind of what got you interested in, working with the county in that area?
So I was going to school for paralegal, and I was going to go work for an attorney. His name was actually was it Ruben Sandoval. He actually committed suicide in the early 90s. And I was actually a waitress at Black Cafe while I was going to school for paralegal. And after he committed suicide, it changed my minds and careers. But not only that, we were exposed to law enforcement, to gang unit, to community leaders when we grew up. So I wanted to be part of the law enforcement family. And actually, it's a bunch of us, a bunch of myself and my cousins. We started at the sheriff's office in 1997. So myself and two other cousins of ours, and my sister, she's a lieutenant at the sheriff's office. We all started in 1997 or 1999. And I was interested because I saw a lot of domestic violence, not within my family, but in the outside, domestic violence, a lot of, criminal mischief. There was drugs all around us. And it was just a very sad moment within our upbringing. But I saw that law enforcement did a lot for the community. And I wanted to be part of the solution instead of the problem. So I was 23 years old when I started the sheriff's office, started as a clerk one. Now I'm a clerk of the whole county. Worked my way up, got promoted to a clerk two, did the latent evidence, the forensic latent evidence for criminal investigations, worked in criminal warrants, did all the civil and criminal warrants as well too, fixed all the records that were incorrect when we would do some incarceration of the wrong individual, because they would say they were Janie Adame instead of Lucy Adame. They would lie about who they were. I would compare the biometrics, the fingerprints. I would check the information, validate the correct record, make corrections, send it to DPS, send it to FBI. But I started because I was exposed to law enforcement. I wanted to be part of the solution, not the problem. I wanted to tie systems together. I wanted to be part of a big, program that did things to make government a friendly place for the community, like they showed us.
I grew up in a family of four. My parents had four kids in 2 years and 5 months. So I
Oh,
have
wow.
twin sisters that are 11 months younger than me.
Wow.
And in growing up, just to see how siblings in the same family can end up to be so different. But I look at your experiences and what you've seen for an extended period of time. What do you think is the difference, or is there a difference? What makes the difference between a kid who makes it through
Mhm.
all the different things that they're exposed today and the ones that don't?
I think it's their upbringing. One is their upbringing. It's the household, because even though we lived in poor communities, we still had a structured home. So it's having that respect within the household, whether it's a one-parent household or a two-parent household, but it's the upbringing. It's not so much the environment, because I grew up in that environment, but it's the household that holds family down. Because you set the structure, you set the foundation. You can be as poor, but it's the love of a family that structures something to be successful. It's like the flower, it's dead, you water it, it comes back to life. Those are your children, the children in your community. You have mentors outside. If you don't have those parents, if you don't have those guardians, then there's always our educators, our teachers. I had teachers at school that I still talk to, my kindergarten teacher who had a strong influence in me.
Mhm.
And those people, it's like, oh wow, like you're still following me after 40 something years. Like that's, teachers have a lot to do with our children, because who do they see every day? The teachers. And now that they got a big old pay raise, I'm happy, because teachers are counselors, they're daycare, they're educators, they're psychiatrists, they're everything in 8 to 10 hours, 5 days a week, even on weekends or even after school.
Well, I know there are successful single parent families, but
Mhm.
growing up with my wife, I don't know how we would have made it without each other, because we're our best defenders. I mean, we're the
That's right.
best defender for the other. I mean, I would tell our kids, "You don't talk to your mother like that," and my wife would say, "You don't talk to your father like that." But also, my plan for school was to keep my kids as busy as possible.
Yeah.
And we were always very, very active. I mean, we were in band boosters when they were in band. We would be working in the concession stand. My kids were just like me. I mean, my parent, I mean, you just think they love it so much. My kids are like, oh, you're going to be in the concession stand after I graduate because you just love doing that. And I'm like, I can tell you one thing I'm not going to be doing. I'm not going to be in the band concession stand the weekend during the fall football program, because I was doing that to show I loved you.
Yeah.
Now that you're no longer there, I'll show you I love you in other ways.
Well, you'll do it as a grandfather. So watch, you're going to do it as a grandmother or grandfather. You're still going to work the concessions
Oh, yeah.
after the fact because you're so passionate. Because I mean, we did the same thing. So my husband and I, even though he's a deputy and I'm an elected official, nobody calls me the clerk when I go and help at the school. I mean, I'm literally there. We're cleaning up. We're involved in the, in my daughter's, schooling, whether it's at the barn, we're sweeping, we're doing things because we love our children, because we're setting that example. We're setting that, we're putting that foundation so we can only mentor them. We can only direct them, and we can only give them so much. But society out there is where our children are getting lost. But if you structure them strong enough to withhold themselves and not be intimidated or peer pressure, that's one of the biggest things. But if you structure them so strong at home and have that faith, you have to have faith, because I pray when I leave, we pray before she goes to bed. And that's the kind of the belief that we have. Because even when I got elected, I had all reverends and pastors and everybody come pray, because I believe in, having faith in God. That's one thing I do have. But to instill that in your children, so when they face the world that we're all dealing with, they can be able to, stand for themselves and hold themselves and know when to walk away, because it's a danger zone. And that's what we see right now. Because when I worked at the sheriff's office, I mean, I would see 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds. And I'm like, oh my God, like for minor things. And it would destroy their abilities to find a job. Now it's not as hard, but back then it was like a record, no career. Now there's resources, there's expungements, there's other things. But back then it was, you have a record, you have no career. Nobody wanted to hire you.
Well, I taught high school for 2 years before I went to law school. And the hardest thing for me, because my parents were both public schools teachers, is see the cycle of poverty just repeat itself where, the mom was 16 when she got pregnant, and then she got dropped out of school, and then and she was raising a kid, and then I'm teaching her 16-year-old daughter who gets pregnant and then drops out of school. And I think that's probably one of the most difficult things for me to see. I think today it's different. People, I mean, they may get pregnant, but they're not going to drop out of school. Back when I was, I'm so old. When I was in school, it was, oh, you're pregnant, you have to leave. That's not true anymore. And I think that's a good thing from the standpoint of, we don't want people to drop out of their education, because, I read an article, I think yesterday, that said that a single parent family has a 78% greater chance of growing up in poverty. And so we don't want to take education away from that person and close it off and make it even worse. And so I'm glad that those opportunities are different today than they were when I was in school. You've been in Bexar County, and you're in a military family. My wife's family is a military family, and my dad would have loved to have been in the military. He was appointed to the very first class of the Air Force Academy.
Oh, wow.
But failed his physical because they discovered he was diabetic. And so he was diabetic the rest of his life. I like to say my dad could tell you everything you did not want to know about jets. Because he was so disappointed that he did not go to the Air Force Academy, because he wanted to go fly jets so bad. So let's talk. Okay, so you have this history in the really you working with the county, and now you are county clerk. In fact, I saw you a few days ago, and I was at a restaurant, and there was on the menu the Lucy plate.
Yeah. So it's an honor. Miss Carolina from Carolina's Mexican Restaurant. She survived during COVID when many restaurants closed their doors because they couldn't afford to keep their restaurant open. But where her restaurant's at, it's in between a rural community where you still have farm workers, you still have ranchers, but then you have a new community called Mission del Lago that our former mayor, Henry Cisneros, had a lot to do with that project on making, housing affordable for medium class families. And then you have the Villa Coronados, where it used to be a struggling poor community. So she's in the middle of a very different, cultured community. And she gives back so much to the community. Her and I came together, and I'm a board member for Eagles Flight Advocacy and Outreach. And I go to her and say, can you help with this? Can you help with that? She helps with anything. She'll help with the school board. She'll help with bringing bonds to the school. She'll help businesses, and she helps the community. It takes a village to raise a village. And her daughter also graduated from the school district. So because I eat there every Saturday, and you won't even recognize me, I'm there with my jeans and my t-shirt, and I'll be working at the school doing a food bank, or I'll be cleaning the barn with my daughter, and I'm there with my hair pulled back, no makeup, and I'm just relaxing because I'm in my community. And she named a plate after me because every time I ate there, I would order 2 eggs over easy with papas and frijoles, barbacoa, and my tortillas tostaditas. And she said, that's going to be a Adame County Clerk plate, Adame-Clark County Clerk plate. And actually the commissioner, he also has a plate named after him because that's part of his precinct. So that just tells you that many business owners are appreciating that other elected officials who are also living in the community are part of bringing back money into the community they live in. Because you're bringing back money into that same community that you live in.
You introduced, this owner of this business to me, or this group, yesterday, and she seemed to be very shy about having the spotlight on her. So she seemed very much a worker bee, but she
Yes.
really didn't want the spotlight on her. And she seemed to be such a very genuine person.
She is. She's an amazing person, and she does so much. And I'm very proud to be a friend of hers. And I'm honored to be on her menu. That's what makes me. I look at it. I'm like, oh my god! And they'll send me pictures. Oh my god, you're in the menu. You're on the menu.
Hey, that talks about your personality. You have a very outgoing personality, and I talked to my contacts in Bexar County, and when I first met you, I was like, this is a really, really smart woman. I don't know if I can do a podcast with her because I'm going to come across really dumb talking to her, because she's gonna be circles around me. So you have really impressed me when we've met and when we've talked. So I'm very excited about talking to you today. As you can tell, when I'm nervous, I start giggling and laughing. And so,
Well, a lot of the bondsmen, I met them when I used to work at the sheriff's office. When I started in 1997, they used to come over the counter and they would ask for certain information, or they would call. And I knew that they were a business and they're needing our assistance. And when I worked there, we innovated a lot of stuff. Mr. David Dunbar was there, Lupe Montes was there, Mr. Serrano was there. And it was a very, it was a very different organizational work process. If we didn't have it, we directed them to the place they needed to go. And if it was something that we can innovate or improve, we would work together and try to design certain things. And they were really good about investing on our education. They were trying to see how far can we take certain employees that actually want to work, who show interest in not complaining, because nowadays people complain. If it's not in a job description, they don't want to do it. Well, back then in Central Records, we multitasked. We did about 20 things in one department. And I think my salary was like 17,000 or 19,000 a year back then. But you only took home probably about $300 and something every 2 weeks after taxes and everything. But I was so honored to work for the law enforcement family, because that's who I grew up looking at. And that's who I wanted to work for.
I mentioned I taught high school for 2 years before I went to law school. I went to law school in 1986, so we're talking about 84. Well, the year before I started teaching high school, the starting salary was $11,000, and I had gotten a big raise the year I started, and I think it was probably 15,000 or 16,000. But I was like, $11,000. Wow. That's a long time ago, but still, I don't know if anybody lives on that. Well, when I was researching and getting ready for today, I saw that one of the things that I found on you is that in your first year in office, you started the Straight to You.
The Records on the Run Straight to You?
Yeah. What is that?
Yes. So basically what happened is, because I worked at the sheriff's office, because I was exposed to public safety, because I came to the county clerk's office, my predecessor was focused on real property land records, and the judicial part of it was still files. They were still pushing files through the courthouse. And I said, and I watched all these seniors come around the courthouse in wheelchairs and canes, struggling trying to get to our departments or any other department. And I said, I had a meeting at the VFW Post 76, and I had a town hall meeting with the veterans, and I asked them, what do you want? What do you need? Because I have a lot of free services. I have a DD 214 for free. Statute claims every county clerk shall record a DD 214, a discharge military paperwork for free, and provide them with 2 free certified copies. So that's free. There's no revenue on that. Then we also have a Thank a Veteran program that promotes their business and they sign up for it. We also have a property alert free. So I asked him, what can I do to help you? And he had all these problems. Veterans have PTSD. They panic when they go to the metal detectors. They can't afford to go downtown. There's no free parking. It's, you know, it's so chaotic. And I had just started in office 4 months, right? But I kept staff members that were supervisors and managers and made them chiefs. So they were just getting, you know, they were just getting used to me. They were just learning how to work with me. And they were all down this long table. And I said, oh, don't worry, Commander, we're going to mobilize. And I knew it was a native cloud-based system. I knew I could search it at home. So I knew that all we had to do was talk to the vendor and see what they could create.
Mm-hmm.
So then my staff looked at me like, you're crazy. Like, what are you talking about? You just came in and you're saying you're going to mobilize. So once I say something, I'm going to stick to it. So sure enough, we came back to the office and my chief deputy said, let me call the vendor. Let me see if we can make it happen. I said, come back to me when you find me a solution. She comes back 30 minutes later and said, we can do it. Okay, I want this and this. I want this and this. And I want it to be designed like this. And we need 4 for all 4 precincts. Mind you, it's before COVID. Before COVID. Many people don't have a printer at home. All the records are free online, but not everybody has printers at home. Not everybody can afford internet access. There's not enough bandwidth in many city areas here, downtown area. And there's lack of transportation out to the rural area. So there's many things that are cons against the not doing the project. There's more pros to do the project. It costs us $26,000 to put 4 mobiles in a box straight to you. And these were built before COVID.
Wow.
So we're proactive before we're reactive. And we got a local, state, national, and international award for those services. So my staff went to Washington, New York, and they got recognized for everything that it was built for. It has actually proved itself because during COVID, they popped out all lower Bexar County, and we had 2 to 4 hour waits because people were desperately trying to get married because they were scared because they were passing away because of COVID. And my husband and I say we're dating, and I'm the waitress. He's the one that has insurance. Now we're trying to get married because I need medical insurance and now my life insurance to pay my assets. So everybody was just getting married. And then we needed deeds because people were doing a lot of TODs, transfer upon death deed, ladybirds. We were seeing many things happening within the 2-year scope of COVID where people were crying, please help us. Nobody realized that the clerk was an essential responsibility. They thought we were paper pushers. But COVID, we got a lot of respect from COVID because they realized, wow.
Well, I like that expression. We were proactive before we were reactive. I mean, that could be a motto for a lot of businesses, and
Oh yeah.
and that would sure improve because I think a lot of times we are reactive instead of proactive. So that's great. So, okay, so you decided to run for county clerk, and I'm assuming that someone retired, or did you become it?
So we became friends. So Mr. Reckoff in 2014, the front page said, it's my last term. That remember 2014?
Yeah.
And you'll be surprised. Mr. Reckoff's brother, Jim Reckoff, was my captain at the sheriff's office. I worked for him, so he knew my work ethics. He knew who I was. He sent me to get, all these certifications. And Mr. Reckoff said it was his last term, 2014. He said, it's my last time. So he was going to run and stay till 2018. I know I wanted to be in public office. I was a community leader, but I know I wanted to do so much more. And there was a little girl that when I used to work in criminal investigations, the case is already done. The little girl was 2 years old and she didn't go through the system until she was almost 7 years old. And she was raped by a neighbor. That's how slow our systems were. That's what we're trying to automate. And I said, there has to be a way to fix all these problems. And I talked to my kitchen cabinet and I said, okay, there's a district clerk and there's a county clerk. What do you all think? And they said, district clerk is fine. She's working on some modernization. She's doing certain stuff. but the county clerk already said he was going to retire. He hasn't really worked on the criminal justice information system. He really hasn't improved that. I think it's a good fit for you. And I said, okay, I got it. I talked to all these people and they said, everybody's ran against him and nobody's beat him. Why do you think you can beat him? And I was like, wow, welcome to the club. Welcome to the club. And it was more so respect. It was more on my experience, my merits, and reasoning of why I wanted to come in was to automate, modernize, innovate, better pay, retain staff, and just move forward for government here in Bexar County. Because we were like 20 to 40 years back. We were so behind on many things. And you know this because you go all around Texas and you see all the other county clerks, how they work. So Mr. Reckoff and I became friends. We actually have dinner, once in a while we'll get together, have dinner, we have conversations, because I never disrespected the man, because anybody who runs for office, I give you so much respect, because you lose a partner and you lose time with your family to serve for the people. And people don't realize that. They think some people would do it just for title, for entitlement, but if you do it for all the right reasons, you lose a lot while you're serving office, because you're so in tune with how do I fix government that sometimes we disconnect from our family. And that's what I'm trying not to make that same mistake that he fell into. He's a very respectful man and he served 24 years, longest serving county clerk in Bexar County. I'm the first woman for Latina, but he was the longest serving county clerk. And I still talk to him and Mr. Bob Green. Mr. Bob Green served from 1976 to 1994. And I celebrated his 89th birthday with him at J. Alexander's. So I'm friends with both of them, actually.
I think the hardest thing about politics today is, these personal attacks. And I really appreciate what you're saying about you can be respectful and say, hey, we just have different goals. And that doesn't mean that you're a bad person. And I think that it's so easy to go into the personal attacks and say, blah, 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 you're disqualified from being able to run for office. But, how is your husband with all this? Because, my state rep has just said he's not going to run for reelection. And,
Oh, wow.
lobbyists are like, Ken, you need to run. You need to run. And I'm like, I would never do that to my wife. My wife is a very private person. She doesn't like crowds. She doesn't like to, big crowds just make her very nervous or not nervous. She's just not comfortable. And so I would never do that to her. So I'm like, how is your husband with that?
My husband's like your wife. He's very reserved. He's very behind the scenes. But when it comes to community service, to giving back either food or whatever it is, in my pictures, you'll see him there. So if you see him in any pictures, it's because we're either doing a family thing or we're doing a community thing. But when it comes to the leadership position that I'm in, he doesn't get involved in all that. So I really didn't hurt him. He was my champion. I had to talk to him first before I actually became the clerk, because it's a partnership. We've been together going on 20 years. And I said, look, honey, what do you think? And he says, if you want to, your heart's in it. You've been part of this county for so long. But not only that, you've been serving the community since I've known you, even before I met you. So he's very reserved like your wife. He's very behind the scenes, but he's an amazing father. He's an amazing husband. There's times, and you won't believe it, there's times that I'll go home and I'm like, I'm done, babe. And he'll take me whatever I need. He allows me to take a nap, and and he'll tell our daughter, he says, leave your mom alone, let her rest. And because he knows me personally. So he knows that I need to just disconnect, and he'll leave me alone, and he'll take care of everything else. So to answer your question, you're bringing your wife into it, but you're not, as long as you respect her privacy, her life, like I do for my husband. Like, I'm proud of him, but I respect my boundaries, his boundaries, and I'm always honoring him. He's sitting on right in front of us. So I'm always, making sure that if he doesn't want to go, I don't force him to go, because there's a lot of events we have to go to. And if he doesn't want to go, he doesn't have to go. But one thing I'm proud to see is he'll share my stuff on social media, and it makes me proud, and it gives me a tear, because I'm like, oh, he is paying attention, because it's just that he's very reserved. That's how they are.
Sure. So when you decided to run for county clerk, you are elected. And so what was your biggest surprise after coming into office?
I really didn't have any surprises. Somebody interviewed me yesterday on some other stuff. For me, I came in running, and I kept a lot of the institutional knowledge. They were just in different positions, and I moved them to higher positions, and we became a team. You can see that they were kind of scared. They were kind of skeptical because they didn't know me, but they started meeting people that actually work with me. And I guess they heard like, hey, she'll take care of you. She's this, she's that. So there was nothing that surprised me other than when I walked into a basement and the sub basement that I saw millions and millions of files that needed to be scanned and worked on. But that's what we run for, to challenge ourselves and to fix the problems. Because if you complain about what somebody else didn't do, then you're wasting time to serve the community or serve in your position of what you ran to do. So you got to run for a position or be in position to have some kind of skill set or experience, and surround yourself with good leaders, because we got rid of it. We got rid of millions of files and documents that we had. They're gone. They're all scanned and digitized. So to me, there really wasn't nothing that surprised me. I really have taken it, its face value. I really haven't been, I don't have nothing negative to say. It's been very positive, very energetic, and I'm just going. So,
But it seems like, you have a very outgoing personality. And I think, politics sometimes is all about personal relationships.
yeah.
It looks like to me you build trust with the people you work with and the other politicians, so they know that when you say something, you're going to do it. And so you can go to them like you said, with a team approach and say, this is what we're looking at doing and what can you do to help us? And sometimes that's just roll up your sleeves and help. And sometimes it's money, but those are all, that's, the best compliment I ever got from somebody was someone told me, said, Ken, I've been watching you, and because I didn't really have a clear idea of what I thought about you. And I've decided from watching you, you just want what's best for the industry. And so I thought, well, wow, that's a really not, I was like, boy, I got them full. No, but that was a really nice compliment. And I think that's probably, my short time of just getting to know you and speak to you. You're the same way. You just want what's best. So when you come into office and you go have this humongous job of digitization, and how do you get through that?
You have to just face it and put in the work into it, build those relationships with purchasing, the auditor's office, just explain, just be transparent and be accountable for what's in your umbrella, what's under your responsibilities, and take care of it. Because I see it like this, Ken. Do I really have 4 years in my term, or do I have whatever God gives me? People died during COVID. That's how I came in. I literally told myself, I know my paperwork says I have 4 years, but I literally have whatever he gives me. So let's get to work. We don't got no time to play around. Let's get to work. So that's how they see me. They understand that I don't look at a piece of paper on years of service. I look at it as how long can I be here and how much can I give you? So within the last 5 years, my staff has gotten about almost $8,000 of pay raise altogether. My lower paid staff. When I came in, they were making about 31, 32, but that's with the collaboration of Commissioner's Court, the county judges, the county clerk, myself fighting for them. I've always fought for them.
But that allows you to keep the same people, train them, and then retain them. And so you're not just training, losing.
And I'm losing though. I am losing staff, even though salary just went up. I'm losing staff to law firms, to the district attorney's office, to the medical examiner's office, to probation, to the auditors. But I'm okay with that, because when I take my staff in here and I give them the oath, I always tell them, and I'm very specific, for better education, for more money, not only $100, I said for a lot more money, get out of here. Because I would leave. Like, I got promoted for like $11,000, like, leave. But if there's something wrong, then talk to your superiors and let's fix it. Because I don't want you leaving because you're in misery or you're not work, you don't have a good, healthy working environment. But if it's for a lot more money and better education, don't think about it. Just go. I will always support you.
Well, I know that Bexar County has been upgrading their case management system, and they're in the process of a conversion. So how is that going? Because there's been other counties, Dallas County, it's been a fiasco. Tarrant County, it's been a fiasco. And so how is it going in Bexar County?
So we've been having almost the same issues, but I think what we have to understand is MOCA, it's called an old legacy system of Bexar County. I've been here 27 years in January. It's an old system. It was a good system, but there was not really too much automation for it. There wasn't too much for us to be able to, share or display with, other stakeholders that work with the county. It was very limited, very limited. So what we're trying to do is Tyler implemented the civil process of it, and we went live in 2021. And whenever you implement a new system, you're always going to have hiccups. That's with any systems, not only this,
Yeah.
but you're dealing with a huge amount of many records. You're dealing with many stakeholders because even though it's a county clerk, it all starts at the sheriff's office. At the sheriff's office, they get incarcerated. It goes through a certain, the wheel, and then it gets distributed to the district clerk, the county clerk, the district attorney's office. And then here you got pre-trials, here you got probation. So we all have to be on board to be able to work together. So you're going to have issues if not everybody's dealing with each other, or they don't show for training, or if they're not interested. We need to be sure to be together and collaborating in order for the system to actually work. So to answer your question, there are some issues with the criminal side. We've already pushed the go live date, like I think 3 or 4 times. And we had a meeting recently, and I was very vocal. And I said, either we get off the wagon or we move forward, because I'm done. Because we've been ready since last year. The county clerk has been ready since last year. And I've been ready, and we got a new district clerk, and luckily she's on board, but she's trying to catch up to what the past administration did, and they're not here anymore.
What's the biggest issue that's stopping the going live on criminal?
Because you have those different stakeholders that either, yes. So you have the district attorney. I don't tell them what to do. You have the sheriff's office. So you have different components of responsible parties at the table trying to tell their leaderships, I need y'all to train. I need you to design the system. But MOCA used to be amazing. We create SIDs for bondsmen. We track bondsmen through the SIDs. And I know I used to create SIDs for bondsmen or individuals who got incarcerated. But now here comes this big database, Tyler Odyssey. And we're talking all the county clerks, John Warren from Dallas County, Tarrant County. We have Miss Mary Louise Nicholson. And then we also have Harris County, even down to Cameron County. We're all talking, trying to figure out how can we fix it. But we're the 4th largest county in the state of Texas. We shouldn't be having these kind of problems.
It's the whole issue of technology. I mean, once you get on the technology train, you're always, technology gets obsolete over time. I mean, you've got always to stay on top of it. And so that's a recurring problem. I mean, that's just, I think, a fact of once you go digital. And, I think of Christmas cards that I used to make when we were married and had little kids, and then we'd throw in a little mini CD where you could open it up and have pictures and all, and it would look so cool at the time. And, now I don't even know if it would open on the computer now, because is there even a CD-ROM drive on your computer anymore?
I'm still seeing the microfilms and what was the other one, microfiche?
Yeah.
I'm like, what? That was like a long time ago. But I'm glad you're asking the question, because we want to be transparent. We want to make sure that, because bondsmen do a lot of work with the county governments. You work with the sheriff's office, you work with the district clerk's office, you work with the county clerk's office. Y'all do a lot of work with us, and we want to make sure that you understand that it's not us, it's the system trying to get itself together, but it takes a lot of things to put a card together.
So looking forward in the next couple of years, is the conversion or implementation of the Tyler technologies to Odyssey is the biggest challenge, or are there other challenges that you're facing?
No, I think by next year, once we go live, you're always going to have improvements, or you're always going to have to go through more training. And that's one thing I did request Tyler Odyssey, because there's other modules that they could possibly add to the system so we can improve the system itself. It's not going to be go live and you're ready. There's going to be go live and see what else we can improve through the system to add other modules to help support our workflow. And then statutes change every 2 years. So sometimes we're required by law to do certain things. And I like that, because when laws allow us to do other things, that's how I do remote marriages now. Like, we're going to get ready to do a kiosk for remote marriages because the laws changed. Now I can do remote marriages. So in the criminal side, we do have a lot of laws that are changing, and it's pushing us towards Tyler Odyssey. We have e-filing, that was a Supreme Court order of e-filing. It pushed us into a whole different process, and we just got to follow the laws. So to answer your question, Ken, it will get better, but it always gets worse before it gets better. And as long as I'm here, I'll always make sure with my team to support automation, modernization, and accessibility.
Over the last few months, I've talked to other elected officials from Bexar County, and one of the things that I kind of discovered in talking to the bondsman, and I think I did. Judge Rickoff was on our podcast, and I think I talked to him about it, but I think it was after the podcast over, because when I first heard about it, I didn't think it was true, and it was this issue where you have a criminal case. You're the holder of the public record and on a misdemeanor case, and then you can see that case online because you scan it, it becomes digital, and then you can see the index of the file online. And then, but if there's something happens, the court issues a warrant on a criminal case, and either there's a failure to appear, they do a bond increase, whatever, violation of conditions, then the index is no longer viewable by the public. And when I asked Judge Rickoff about it, he said, "Yeah, I just heard about that. Now I'm checking on that." So, and it seems like that's been something that's been happening for a long time. And so that's the bondsmen discover, hey, that's how we know we have a forfeiture. We can't ever, the case is no longer viewable online. And I thought, do you have any idea what is the thought behind that? Because I can't find anything. I can't find another county that does that. And I know that Bexar County's been doing it a long time, predates you, but I was trying to think what would even be the basis for doing that. I can go to your office, look at the record still.
The file.
Yeah, I can look at the file. Why can't I see it online?
So what we do here, what we do at the sheriff's office, I know this for a fact. So when they would come to the sheriff's office for a background check, and if there was a fugitive warrant, we wouldn't even give them the record. We would call the warrant officer and they would come get them. So here, the same thing, basically. If they do a background check where they're pulling a file, when they see fugitive on MOCA system or on file 360, they'll call the deputy and then they'll come get them. So you're checking your file, but not you. You can come check any file. But if the individual is the owner of the file, they will actually, I'll say fugitive warrant, and they'll call the deputy. One thing that you're going to be happy about, I was going to share it with you. My predecessor actually does have something that he created back when, and I'm trying to expand from it. You can actually search warrants on domestic violence and DWIs. Do you know about that one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have the link to that, Ken, as well too?
Oh, no.
Okay, so we're gonna
include it.
So we're gonna share that with you. We're gonna do it on this podcast. So we started coming back and searching every hyperlink, every website. And I said, okay, let me see what was out there, because I know that there's indexing information. I've never seen warrant information. So we did find information that there is something my predecessor put out there. And I don't know when he did it. It must have been right before I came in. And it has wanted information for DWIs and domestic violence. And I'm going to try to expand from that because it's already there. So because it's already there, then I can expand from that information and add the more minor misdemeanor cases. It's already created.
Sure.
So it's up to date. It's updated every day. So I'm going to push that on the chat, or I'll send it to you by email and you can attach it to the podcast. But that'll make it easier for us because it was already recognizable or recognized back when. And I was excited to see it because I said, well, that's what they want.
Sure.
That's what AFIS are looking for. So if I can add more to that, then it'll make it easier. And then I just bring on the district clerk, and then we should just combine. You know what I mean? Why reinvent the wheel if the wheel's already there, created?
I heard you mention that recently, that you had entered into an interlocal agreement with the district clerk with Fort Bend County, and you made that same point. Why reinvent the wheel when we can go and do an agreement with them and copy what they're already successfully doing? I mean,
Exactly.
talk about what an interlocal agreement is.
So we haven't got into an interlocal agreement yet. We're talking about the conversation because we met with the district attorney's office to ask for his legal advice before we went looking to have a meeting with Fort Bend. So we are looking forward to go visit Fort Bend in January before I saw this, before I ran into the information that I already have. So we haven't got into a local agreement, meaning saying the county clerk and the district clerk agreed to make one local website for attorneys and bondsmen to have access to warrant information. So you no longer have to call the sheriff's office, because we're only here from 8 to 5.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the sheriff's is 24/7. For me, all it does, it benefits the sheriff's office, because you'll help the sheriff's office by kind of diluting or kind of, taking away some of that overcrowd of, inmates coming in. If you bond them out, then they
Sure.
have less inmates in the system. So for me, it's a win-win situation for the county, for the taxpayers, because the taxpayers are paying for the person who's incarcerated for so many days. So for us, it's a win-win situation. So right now, just to make it clear, we're not in agreement. We're in an agreement verbally, but not on documents yet.
Sure. Sure.
But now that I ran into this information, Ken, I'm all excited about it. Ran into this website, and now we want to go ahead and take it in. It's public. I'm going to send it to you. It's public. It was just hiding in the county system. And now we're going to try to add more to it and then incorporate the district clerk and just do an MOU off of that. But I think like the bigger cases won't be able to be there. But that'll be on her site.
You've already mentioned that Bexar County is the 4th largest county in the state. And, a lot of large counties are having increasing issues, especially coming out of COVID, with crime increasing. And, it just seems like we hear more and more stories. And I know Bexar County has been on the news with some tragic events in recent days. And, we all want to work together as a team to address these issues. I know everybody, sometimes the bail industry is the easy target for blame on people. And I don't think the public realizes that really we're a quasi-government entity. We work so closely with the court, so closely with the clerk's offices, and being able to get information from y'all just allows us to get people back to the criminal justice system quicker, so that we can get their cases back on track quicker, so that we can get the defendants back. So we can get justice for victims. And I don't think, one thing I thought since we last spoke, I kind of hadn't even thought about is the bondsman is actually a party to the criminal case, because they're the ones that posted the bond. I think sometimes we forget that they are a party to the criminal case, and they need access to that information so they can do what they were hired to do. And that is
what you're responsible to do, because if
that's a good
you don't
point.
keep your client informed of the court, the court hearings and all that, then you're hindering or hurting your client.
That's right.
So basically you're responsible to inform them of when their court date is, or what they need to do, what are the requirements. So to me, we need to treat either bondsmen or pretrial, I don't care who it is, we need to treat you like a business process, part of the judicial system. I've always seen it like that because I've worked at the county for 27 years. That's my expertise, the judicial system. And anybody who's tied into the judicial system is a responsible party to inform the person who probably doesn't have an address, probably is homeless, probably is from home to home. You need to inform, like if it's a bondsman, whoever it is, you need to inform them so we can keep the system rolling and moving forward, and making sure that we don't incarcerate them 3 or 4 more times, because all we're doing is wasting tax dollar money. So if we allow, bondsmen or pretrials, whatever it is, to just do their due diligence and do their job and have access to information that needs to be available with, respect certain information that's confidential, then you can go ahead and prevent the incarceration overflow that's happening. We share criminals. Every county, I don't care if it's Bandera, I don't care if it's Harris, I don't care who it is. Our criminals are shared around all counties. And that's why I'm glad that all the AFIS systems, all the other systems are connected and are automated, because criminals or people who are committing crimes, they don't just commit crimes in Bexar County. They cross right over to Comal County, they cross right over to other counties. That's why I'm glad we're connected to the DPS system, the Texas DPS system.
You bring up that the DPS system, and that seems like the implementation of SB6, the pretrial safety report. How has that implementation? You've got this whole conversion, digitization, and then on top of that, you've got SB6. That had to be a major overhaul for the county.
We went to training before SB6 became something we had to take care of, but there wasn't any kind of concrete information on what exactly to do, who was responsible. Judges need to be certified. There was not a clear understanding on who can do what. So the district clerk, I give her a lot of credit. She took on the response. It actually happened before this district clerk. So they took majority of the responsibility, and then this administration continued the responsibility so they can do the reporting to OCA, Office Courts Administration. And there were some hiccups because there was a lot of confusion with SB6, and there still is. There's still a lot of unanswered questions with SB6.
One of the things that I've noticed, there was a new opinion from the Court of Criminal Appeals 2 weeks ago that says, if you do not review the public safety report in setting bail, the court has committed error. And I thought, and they even went further and said, if the Court of Appeals does not review the public safety report, they have committed error. And I thought, wow, that's really an underscoring of the requirements of SB6. But, in talking to Bexar County and other counties, one of the big issues with SB6 was when they first implemented, they didn't have a way to do modifications. So if you filed a motion to lower the bond or change the bond, they didn't have a system or a way to implement that or to enter the bond form into to the OCA system. That's now been changed, but I think the rest of the state is slow to get caught up. It's easy to do a modification, but it seems like counties are having difficulty in implementing the requirement that modifications require a bond form. How are y'all addressing that?
So right now we're asking for more training. We did have training prior to it taking effect, but we're asking for more clear understanding from Office Courts Administration, OCA, and actually my staff had a meeting with them. I think it was yesterday at 2 p.m. So we're really trying to get together and collaborate with the district clerk and the county clerk together in case we have some questions, because you got to remember also misdemeanors get enhanced to felonies, and some of the felonies get downgraded to a misdemeanor. So there's no longer a county clerk or a district clerk. I'm glad I have built a relationship with Ms. Martinez, because I asked her, like, if we need to train on something that pertains to like something like with the SB6 that has to be reported to OCA, then let's collaborate and sit down and be trained together in case we have certain questions, because we're taking in, you have felonies, I have misdemeanors, but we cross cases as well too. So I want to make sure that we're not pointing fingers. Instead, we're finding solutions.
The whole point of doing the bond form submission to OCA is we're reporting data to the state, and they're doing reports to the legislature about it.
Correct.
So my point is, if Bexar County and other counties, and I think my review is discovering that the modifications are being entered rarely. That just means the data that OCA is reporting to the legislature is not accurate. And so that's my point about that we need to be entering modifications, because if the bond gets set at 250, then lowered to 50, and then lowered to 10, but none of those modifications were entered in OCA. The last thing that they saw is that we have a $250,000 bond set, which ultimately ended up being $10,000.
But you can also hurt the agency itself, because any reporting of numbers that are done to OCA, the county can be underfunded or overfunded. And that's one thing when I came into office, because I understood the Office Courts Administration, I did an audit in my probate office, my civil office, and my criminal office on OCAs. And luckily I brought OCA, I think it was Doolittle, or I think it was Rebecca Doolittle. She came over, or she sent a team member, and they sat down with my team in my first year of office. But then here came Tyler, and all the reportings were not being done correctly because Tyler wasn't automating the numbers like Mocha used to. So we had all these issues, even on the county clerk's office, because I would get emails and I said, okay, what's going on, guys? I talked to IT. What's going on? The numbers are not getting reported. I was just catching up. Now the systems are off, and I can get penalized. The auditor's calling me because if you don't report accurate numbers, you can get overfunded or you can get underfunded, and it actually hurts the county.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm all about that, Ken. I'm glad you're asking those questions, because the numbers need to be public when it comes to Office Courts Administration. That's what they do. That's their due diligence, and that's what the state's there for.
I just can't thank you enough, Lucy Adame-Clark, for being.
You got it right.
Yay! Thank you for talking with us today and telling us about the county clerk in Bexar County. I mean, I think you're a rock star, and you can walk circles around me every day, I'm afraid. But thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you. Merry Christmas, and you have a good one.
Thank you for listening, and come back for the next episode of The Bell Post.